Well, hello and good evening, good afternoon, good night to all of you from wherever you are looking at us. And I'm going to be sending you invites to watch our program, which is coming to you live and direct from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I'm hoping that you're able to join us. You'll be able to join us, okay? My name is Doris Charles, and I'm from the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, today being Thursday the 4th of September. I am going to continue in the vein in which we started on Tuesday. I'm told that there's a slow connection, so I'm hoping that it will improve. I don't know whether violent crime is deeply entrenched here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But what I do know is that we have a huge problem that together we will have to be able to deal with the issue of crime. And that's why we talk about crime management, and we are continuing in that vein. And crime management specific to our situation and circumstances here on the island. Remember the last time we focused on hotspots and to treat violence as a public health concern. I'll be referring to some research that I have done during the course of the day and previously. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us to at least look again at the meaning of violence, crime, and crime management. And I'm going to be sharing some statistics with you during the next, let's say, close to an hour or so. Let's see if we can get one of our counterparts from abroad for her to be joining us. It doesn't appear as if I am getting that from, you remember last time we also have had some issues. So I'm hoping that gradually she's going to be making her way onto the platform. Thank you for watching. I want you, oh yes, okay, so I see her that she's watching now. So I thank you for coming on. And please continue to write your suggestions, make your suggestions, write them, share them with the general public. And together we will make a difference in the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, specific to what we call today's topic as crime management. So this is the voice of the National Liberation Movement, another political party or movement, a political movement that is here on the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Crime management, meaning all those strategies, the procedures, the framework, the practices that are used by law enforcement coupled with the communities to prevent, investigate, and control crime. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a serious situation here. Crime is a deliberate act that causes physical or psychological harm, damage to or loss of property, and is against the law. And we also talked about violence last time. That violence is that behavior which involves physical force intended to hurt, damage, or kill someone or something. The World Health Organization, well, I like my research. That is what part of my training. So I went into the WHO report on violence and health, and they spoke of types of violence: physical, sexual, psychological attack, and deprivation. I also talk about the fact that it's an intentional use of physical force or power. And brothers and sisters, not just here in St. Vincent, but throughout the entire diaspora, and friends of St. Vincent, Violence could be self-directed so that self-abuse results, so that suicide occurs. Then there is interpersonal violence between individuals, family members, and intimate partners. And then you also have what is known as community violence, which is when you beat up a child and you kick them about, and yeah, those things still happen here and elsewhere. So you have that. So that's a community sort of violence, child maltreatment, and abuse of the elderly. So sometimes you have strangers that will come into the mix, or acquaintances that will cause an abuse or abuse of the elderly, or abuse of the elderly. You also have what is known as collective violence, which is violence committed by larger groups of individuals, social, political, and economic. Thank you for joining us at this time, and I ask that you are free to comment, make your comments, and we welcome those. So share the live with friends and family everywhere. This is the voice of the National Liberation Movement, a movement with a political arm, coming to you live and direct from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And my name is Doris Charles. I am part and parcel of this huge movement that is taking root among the political political grassroots, the politics, so to speak, of St. Vincent. I'm not calling anybody grass, but I'm just saying, it's synonymous with taking root among all of us here on the island and elsewhere. A public health approach, definitely. We will look at this. But our approach towards public health, a public health approach towards crime management, the management of violence in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we will want to channel a lot of information, training, and so on through the village councils and town councils that we are hoping to reorganize here on the island. And again, we say those strategies, the procedures, the practices, together we will tackle the management of crime. Somebody reminded me last week, the management of violence. They reminded me last week that we cannot eradicate violence and crime from the face of St. Vincent, and naturally so. So violence could be threatened or actual. It could be against oneself, another person, or against a group of community, a group or community that either results in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. But we'll stick to crime management as an overall discussion point. Mrs. Hodge, yes, you can go ahead and we will receive your interventions at any time, and others. I'm seeing quite a number of persons that have logged on. Yes, so share the live, share the live. Crime management, we believe, we know, we have seen, has this approach. Well, we would say that some of it has started in St. Vincent, but not enough. The approach involves how our nation manages the incidents and resources and information to reduce crime and to respond to victims effectively through a number of strategies. We have evidence-based responses, the type of evidence that we would get. We will question things like, when did the thing happen? How did it happen? Where? Who? What? And why? And the actual management of the crime scene is also critical. Now, Mrs. Hodge wants to join, so let's see if we can accept Mrs. Hodge and have her join us on. We also have, besides the evidence-based evidence response, the crime scene management. The whole aspect of crime management is also to utilize data and analytics for problem solving, policing, because the police whole system, when you have certain persons who going out of sync with the norm, definitely you've got to crack down on criminal activities, because it would have a tendency to signal to the wider community, listen, that this is the norm, but it is not the norm. It cannot be the norm that we would have crime spiraling out of sync with the mainstream of mainstream society. I want to bring us some statistics to date. Okay. In 2012, I hope you're hearing me. In 2012, if you're not hearing me, please indicate whether or not you're hearing me. In 2012, 7,540. Yes. Yes, okay. Good day to all our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and beyond. Thank you very much for that. Mrs. Hodge, in 2012, that's some years back, 7,540 was the total crime reports in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in that particular year. In 2023, the figure was 3,406 fewer crimes were reported. The question is, does this mean that, I don't know, was it more gun licenses were issued or permitted, and so persons felt empowered to literally take matters in their own hands? The result is death by firearms. Just asking questions. I don't know, but I'm just seeing some interesting figures. So 2012, 7,540 crimes were reported. So you had 80 murders then. In 2017, 5 years later, 5,621 crimes were reported. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Ford. Good afternoon, Mumsy. Good afternoon, Marilyn and others who have joined us. In 2018, 6,065 crimes were reported, 34 murders. In 2022, we had 42 murders, 4,070 crimes were reported. In 2021, well, I should have said 2021 before 2022. 2021, we have 3,997 crimes that were reported, and we have 32 murders. It is believed by some that there was the impact, it's suggested that the impact of COVID-19 pandemic may have been felt or realized in the year 2021, when it had only 3,997 crimes that were reported. Be that as it may. From January to July 2023, 367 crimes reported. March, it was apparently more than 50%, I am told, occurring in March area, in March month. I am subject to correction, of course, to some of this information. But can we recall the tragic shooting incident in July 2023, uptown Kingstown? There was what is known as a 92 days gun amnesty, which ran from the 1st of March to the 31st of May that year. And here's a question that we are asking. Are we seeing a rise in firearm-related crimes? And that the firearms, well, we don't have a firearm factory here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We don't have a We don't produce guns here. We don't make them here. So guns have to be coming from someplace outside of our borders. And are we seeing a growing issue? A developing issue, not a growing issue, but a developing issue. What is it that we are doing in terms of our response? And I know I've heard the reports, seen the information recorded, being captured on media, electronic and written. And there are reports from our police. But we're talking about crime management. I want to commend Mr. Enville Williams, who is our chief police, our commissioner of police, and he has made some brave statements, bold statements, but yet we are having issues. Thank God I haven't heard anybody being shot today. Thank God. But there was an increase in homicides reportedly. We are the second highest in the Western Hemisphere for homicides per 100,000 people. According to One News, January the 3rd, 2024, it was accessed today. There were 55 crime-causing deaths. We're the highest. I should say that figure was the highest in the country post-independence. When we get independence, 1979, right? Yeah. Brothers and sisters, Vincentians abroad and here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have got to pull back. We have got to put measures in place in order for us to, normalize our behavior. I say because when somebody gets killed in the north of the country, whether northeast or northwest, we here in the south, southeast, southwest, we hurt as well. The island is small and accessible. Within a day or so, I am at a funeral someplace. And so are you, you're at a funeral someplace. It's hurting us and we have got to stand up and be counted. So I am thankful for the reassurances of our Chief of Police, Mr. Enville Williams, but he alone cannot do what he has proposed. He said, and I quote him, the police are working behind the scenes to bring offenders to justice. So it's not the police alone that should be working behind the scenes. And that's why our emphasis from the National Liberation Movement is to be placed on village councils and town councils, where we have a network of our nationals coming together and deciding to work effectively, hand in hand with our police. Yes, Mrs. Hodge, you say you like to think that some persons in the higher ranks of the society are involved in this gun violence. Here is the thing. A neighbor may say so. A question may be asked, but definitively we have no evidence that those in the higher ranks are involved in gun violence. And if this is so, Mrs. Hodge, if this is so, brothers and sisters, it ought not to be. Because we want, when we lie down on our beds at night, that we lie down in safety, that we are not going to be, pulled out of our sleeps and shut up, but that the police is to serve and to protect. And so they themselves cannot be involved, should not, I shouldn't say cannot, but should not be involved in this gun violence. So I go back to the words of the Chief of Police, the Commissioner of Police, and he says that he is working behind the scenes to bring offenders to justice. Thank you, sir. Can more be done? Yeah, I think so. I remember when my father was alive, he shared some information with me that I'll never forget. And he was making reference to one of the times that he was living in Jamaica, living and working in Jamaica. My father is John Baylis Frederick. And he said that he met upon an incident. And the long and short of it is that it's the people in the community, those who may be responsible for hiding those who pull the trigger, they're the ones who have the answers, some of the answers to what we are experiencing in our nation state. We're talking about training and sharing knowledge-based information. That's good, but we must continue to partner with others. I want to say as well, Commissioner, that we have trained individuals here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and many of them, we as taxpayers sent them abroad to study. Also, we have members in the diaspora who can help us, and we will be appealing to members in the diaspora to assist St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the crime management here on the island. We are told from a news report as well, St. Vincent Times, the 1st of January 2025, that there are gangs in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 5 to 6. ACP Trevor Bailey reported on that. And the report as well that was captured, or part of the report that was captured from the US State Department says this, that cocaine traffickers in South America are utilizing St. Vincent and the Grenadines and other islands as hubs for transit of illegal drugs to the US and Europe. There must come a question as to why is it that a small island state, albeit small island developing state of just over 110,000, would become a hub for the transit of illegal drugs to the US and to Europe. Still referencing St. Vincent and the Grenadines Times, and yes, thank you, Mrs. Hodge, I see your note. Since 2001, when this current administration assumed office, and I am not politicizing crime and criminal behavior, but I am making a reference to what St. Vincent and the Grenadines Times indicated, that in 2001 to 2025, roughly 24 years, the word out in 2022 was that the PM stated during an address on VFM, which was a privately owned radio station, he says governments do not possess an exclusive magic bullet, quote unquote, the proverbial magic bullet. It didn't, necessarily mean a real bullet. But what he was saying is that governments do not possess an exclusive magic bullet to eradicate criminal behavior. And the PM, I must thank him, the current Prime Minister, I must thank him because he says this, that a holistic approach was advocated. So we can't eradicate criminal behavior. Somebody pointed back to the Bible when the first two sons upon the face of the earth, for those of us who know and understand the Bible, the first two sons were what? Cain and Abel. Right in the family, you have brothers fighting each other and killing each other. That is not to say we must accept that this is never, ever going to be our fate, or we must accept that this is going to be so. So, so let me go. The poor youths cannot afford to feed themselves, much less afford to buy guns, okay? So that's one comment. The other comment is that a lot of you have crime like it's hard to control. Crime, like it's hard to control crime. Get rid of the crime minister and his gangs and the corrupted police officers. And when we make comments like this, we have to justify calling a particular minister a crime minister and stating that he has gangs and stating that the police force is corrupted. You know, if the police force have a few bad members, if they have a few bad members, doesn't mean that the entire force is corrupted. Doesn't mean that at all. Otherwise, none of us would have been alive, you know. So I have to disagree with that statement. I agree that the current administration needs to be changed. That's why some years ago, my sitting room here was filled with persons asking me to be part of the process. So I am retired from working actively on behalf of our nation state and being paid to do so. And I found it necessary, having sought the Lord and his advice, to get involved the way that I am. So to say a crime minister and his gangs, that's a serious statement. So the National Liberation Movement, of which I am a part, we cannot agree with you on that statement, but we agree that we must get rid of an administration if the administration is not serving the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and serving them in a way in which we elected them to serve, and they're not delivering. If we find that and we assess them according to what we know that they have promised to do, and they have ended up fooling us for a number of years, then we will get rid of them, not through guns and bullets or bamboo and barbed wire, but we get rid of them through a constitutional process called voting. So we will vote them out of office, but not just voting them out of office for the sake of voting them out of office, but we must replace them with persons who understand their constitutional right, with persons of political integrity and personal integrity, of persons who understand the process of democracy. Yes, we must have a phantom democracy, but rather we must understand where we are at and why we would be elected to serve, because politicians are the greatest servants of those who elected them. And so who defines this holistic approach that was advocated by our current Prime Minister? Who defines that holistic approach? He advocated for that. What does the approach entails? Because you see, it's one thing to say, we don't have a magic bullet. Everybody should take personal responsibility to take care of themselves and prevent anything happening to you, which is true up to a certain point, but there are some things that do happen that we have to call on the police. So when do we coordinate our efforts to fight crimes? In a holistic way. But if you get rid of village councils, you destabilize them, you say, okay, they're no longer useful. Refuse to train our people to help our people look after ourselves, then there is a serious disconnect. And I'm calling on us to go back to revisit the use, or I should say the importance, of what is known as village councils. It is you, the villagers, and me, the villager. When we cooperate together, we are able to harness, all the resources, or a lot of the resources within our sphere of existence, and be able to say, this is what we want or don't want within the ambit of our existence. So who defines this holistic approach that was advocated? What does the approach entail, and when do we coordinate our efforts to fight crimes? And where do we begin? And with whom? You think I don't be scared sometimes? Going certain places? There is someone who told me point blank to my face what they were going to do to me since 2003. And then, as the old people say, me take that the heart and stand up good. Thereafter, more than 10 years, the reason for trying to kill me is different, but the intention is the same. That left psychological scars, but it also assists me to sort of reflect on what is actually happening. Not just now, long time. It caused me to reflect on why would persons advocate violence against another unless something wrong with them. So yes, Mrs. Hodge, you were saying that you believe if the youth could afford to buy guns, they would use that money to start their own businesses. I did not accuse the police of acting outside of the law. I am suggesting that those who can afford to pay for guns are using our youths to do their dirty work. Ooh, that's loaded. That's loaded. Let's break that down. You believe that the youth could afford to buy guns. If. You see that little word? If. But is it true to say that they are buying guns with raw cash or howsoever they come by it? But let us say if the youth could afford to buy guns, they would use that money to start their own business. Absolutely. Absolutely. I heard a preacher years ago was talking about the same drug trade and so on in the United States of America. And what he was saying is that the youths of this country, well, that specific country area, if he's talking about a specific area, he was saying that the networks, the ability that they have to manage a business and to run it effectively, and so on, the coordination, the planning, the implementation of all the strategies that they use within the drug trade, remove the drugs, and get involved in the making of shoes, get involved in the making of pots and pans and refrigerators. And we have talent and skills, a whole heap of talents and skills right here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that is going to waste. And what is hurting me is that, you see this, is the melanated, our melanated young boys and girls that are going to untimely graves. Well, untimely deaths, and early graves. And it has to stop. It has to stop, or slow down, radically, so to speak. It has to, because we can't continue at this rate. We can't. Are going to be notes. Do we have a gun culture here in St. Vincent? And do we have cocaine trading among our youths even as we speak? Some more than 2 years ago, with the help of some of my relatives from abroad, my heart really went out to persons in the community, and I know I could eat a bread, so somebody say, "Let me eat a food now." And I say, it's the same thing I was calling you all to share with me. And one gentleman came one day, stone cold out of this world. When he got sober, gave him ginger tea and so on, he began to explain his involvement in the cocaine trade and the consumption, the smoking of it or the inhaling of it. I said, well, why do you do it? He said he did it because at the time it was available, it was cheap, and his friends encouraged him. And I go back to what Mrs. Hodge is saying here. She didn't accuse the police of acting outside of the law, and I want to thank you for reinforcing that. I am appealing to our police officers Sometimes things could look, the grass could look green on the other side, and you may be given a sum of money to close your eye to a particular crime. I mean, come on, sometimes it's not the norm, but some things do happen. I shut him out, man. I beat up Darry, shut him out. And I'm asking, appealing to that higher sense of obligation, um, commitment to us as a people. If you were doing it, I'm asking you to desist and to have that sense of purpose, that sense of rightness, so to speak, within you. I know that some people say you could only get that from God and God alone. And I'm challenging us to continue to focus on what is right, because there is a right way and a wrong way of doing things. So police officers, we're not accusing you of acting outside of the law, but we are suggesting that those who can afford to pay for guns, and if you know that they can afford to pay for guns, you have relatives and friends elsewhere here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we are using our youths to do this dirty job. I beg of you to desist. You know why? You might lose your mother, your brother, your father as a result of being involved or turning a blind eye to what is actually happening. I've heard that there's a new thing now. And the new thing is that if they can't get your mother, if they can't get you, they're going for another member of your family. And I'm sure if you love and if you have consideration for others, if you were involved in a trade, cocaine trade among the youths or the gun culture here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you will desist, you will stop. So reportedly, there's a rise in gun ownership among young males. And I want to say this. Men who threaten their wives to kill them, and there is enough evidence out there. You may not be a young male, you may be an old male. Your gun license should be revoked. The National Liberation Movement will see to it that those who threaten to take the lives of another, be they boyfriend, woman, man, the National Liberation Movement, once elected, will see to it that anybody who threatens anybody else, revocation of your gun license. We are taking it away with the help of God. We're taking it away. And there are other things too that could happen to you. If you play bad and figure that, or you live alone, so you are going to have a gun and you could talk and say what you're going to do, and you're going, the National Liberation Movement will see to it that your gun license will be revoked. We are told that there is a small minority group that is intertwined with the cocaine trade and its various offshoots as well as everything else. So if, and these are the words from our current Prime Minister, if we know that it is a small minority group that is intertwined with the cocaine trade, what is it that we are doing to help this small minority group? And can we really do anything to help this small minority group to desist or to stop? And you've got to ask yourself a question like, why is it that they're involved in the first place? Is it that they don't have anything else to do? Is it that they're unemployed and they want to make a fast money? But fast money equal fast death. And there's the issue of violence against women. Well, you know, I was coming to that. I stand up with every woman anyway, and I say to our men folk, that if you love us, you will never threaten to harm us. You'll never get involved in sexual activity outside of that relationship that could harm your partner. Never. So we have Luan Roberts. Remember her? She was a family court counselor. We had Precious Williams. She was 17 years old. They cut her up and they put her in a plastic bag. Hmm? Read the news. You have Veronica Small. Small, as in small body. She's small, small body, and found her dead, murdered. Altavia Bilinji, mother of two, murdered. Shoma Adams Thomas, murdered. Violence against women. What is wrong with us, brothers and sisters? When we get to the place that if a woman says she wants you, just go home. If the home belongs to both of you, decide to part that, especially if the woman has children with you. That woman lie down with you to have the children belong to both of you. Decide, you know what, she says she want me, that's fine. I go in my way, are we selling the house, or I go in my grandfather's place, or some cousin, let me breeze off my head. Call a church, brethren, call somebody in the community. That's why they're advocating for village councils. Call the head of the village council. Call somebody and say, listen, you see that woman there? She a man. She another man. And I can't take it. Call somebody. Talk to somebody. Instead of taking a knife or a gun, Shoma was murdered with a knife. Yes, they pick it up and they see the blood on the knife. And that has hurt me, and it is informing me in such a way as to help me to understand even a little bit better. Because I could have been murdered too because I was threatened. Yeah? So, and every woman everywhere, we must say no to violence because you have some women as well who are deciding to take matters into their own hands. And I'm saying, for heaven's sake, don't do that, please. Doesn't help, you know. Especially if you have children, the children are the broken pieces throughout this whole scenario. I'm going to pause a little while to take a drink of some lime juice. Yeah, special cup, NLM. A long time I didn't drink lime juice. For me, not too much sugar. Brothers and sisters, it is a tiresome thing. Really, really tiresome. But every Monday morning you're hearing some kind of violence, some kind of criminal activity or behavior, and the news becomes awash with all of this information. Yes, Mrs. Hodge, I am seeing you. And let me read this before I get back to what the National Liberation Movement, part of what we are proposing. You see, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has some of the most intelligent people on the planet. And I cannot understand why we are in this situation of excessive violence when we can speak and reason with each other. But the other thing, Mrs. Hodge, that I am beginning to realize is not because you are most intelligent, it doesn't equate with the whole aspect of not being able to reason. Because some people, very intelligent, but they lack the ability to reason at the level of saying, okay, this is what, yeah, intelligent. Book learning is not common sense. So you know, you're reasoning, yeah, this cup, definitely this cup, yeah. And that's about it. It don't go beyond that. I know what I'm saying. I'm not trying to insult anybody. But the ability that some persons are given, in my particular circumstance, you have persons who appear to be intelligent, book-wise, but when it comes to reasoning, you ask them to simple thing. What about if you consider going to counseling? They come across and they tell you, listen, I'm not going to any counseling, but if you force me, I will go and I will tell the counselors what they want to hear. That doesn't make no sense. It really doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to? You're intelligent. You went to university. You spent 15, 25 years at university, and you have a personal problem. And you sit to them, trying to reason with them, and their conclusion is that if you force me to go to anything named counseling, I am going to fool the counselors because I'm going to tell them what they want to hear. Doesn't make sense, doesn't. So, but we do have some of the most intelligent people upon the planet. I've been traveling a little bit here and there. And sometimes when we do check at universities, at what's the place name in England, the GlaxoSmithKline, these pharmaceutical companies, people within the Navy and the Army, you name it, just about every place you could think, you could think about. We have intelligent Vincentians who are part of our diaspora and who understand exactly, some of them even better understand this whole aspect of loving and being loved, their relationship to God and to man, politics, democracy. They understand it. Some, though, would sit quietly by and they don't want really to get involved. And I'm saying to us, get involved. The National Liberation Movement, a movement with a political arm, welcome you or will welcome you once you're able to, reach out to us and make that contribution towards development, national development. Yes, Mrs. Hunt, you say, are you saying that they do not have common sense? I don't know if it is that they don't have common sense, but some people lack the ability to reason. That is within my own sphere dealing with some people. I don't know how the situation is with you, but there are some persons who definitely lack the ability to sit down and reason, you know. But my grandmother used to say what? Common sense met before book. Anyhow, and then you say, yes, as you know, common sense was made before book. Yes, common sense was made before book. Common sense that is common to all of us so that we could understand right from wrong and to hold our tongues and to listen to another person's opinion and so on. Now, Cornelius John, you remember him? There was a government senator that was implicated in the incident when he was shot in his property in 2021, April of 2021. The charges were dismissed. Somebody said the other day about influence. I cannot safely say that this particular instance, I don't have any empirical data or evidence to say that here was a senator that was implicated in this matter. Here were key people who were at the front of the room, so to speak, and what they did and got away provided an opportunity or provided a platform for others to continue to pick up a gun and just walk in and shoot somebody. I can't say that. What I can say is that it happened and the case was dismissed. What is NLM? And that's just one. Because you see, if Doris go out there, if Doris goes out there and take up anything and lash somebody, of course they will lock me up. But if we have persons of influence in our communities, in our neighborhoods, persons who should have been scolded, persons who should either lose a license for the gun or be locked up or charged or something, if they get away, I'm not talking as maybe putting myself in that situation. Mr. John is still suffering with his leg. Eh? He is. I glimpsed him the other day. But if these persons, perpetrators, they call them, if they go about their own business or they are transferred from one job to the next or they resign and find themselves elsewhere and were not, how do you say, were not assessed properly, they were not charged properly, they get away. Let me tell you something with injustice. Once you see injustice is allowed to continue, it affects you in a very interesting way. You're allowing justice to go on in your homes and you didn't see anything. After a while, what happens is that it comes back to bite you in some varied forms, different types of forms. Allowing justice in the community, you close your eye and you see whatever, whatever. And people are going to think that it is the norm. Some people are going to think that it is the norm, so they will continue to do what? Cousin so-and-so got away with, or Mr. so-and-so got away with, then I could get away with the same thing. What happened to Cornelius John was an injustice. And I stood up in Kingston. Remember those days? I marched with our nationals in Kingston against all of this. Yeah. Sad, but true. But we've got to change it. And the National Liberation Movement will be partnering with law enforcement agencies regionally and internationally. As a matter of fact, we have been speaking with a particular law foundation and others beyond the Caribbean region in order for us to collaborate when it comes to law enforcement issues. We may not be able to eradicate crime and violence from St. Vincent and the Grenadines or from any place else, but we certainly will be able to put certain things in place to hold certain people accountable for their actions, to make sure that St. Vincent and the Grenadines as a sovereign state will be held out as a safe place where people can come and do business and so on, and where friends and relatives will be able to come back home and put money in a box, leave it someplace else there. I'm not kind of delusional to think that it can't happen. It can happen, but together we will. Together we will. That's our tagline. The National Liberation Movement of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is saying that together we will. We can assist us when it comes to the management of crime and violent behavior and actions here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so that the wider community will benefit in terms of safety. Yes, Mrs. Sarge, as you say, some of what you're saying makes the current law or law enforcers sounds like they are not carrying out the enforcement of the law. I want to go back to the Chief of Police, the Commissioner of Police, and his statements were, police is working behind the scenes to bring offenders to justice. And that there is a training and sharing of knowledge so that you have a knowledge-based information, which is good, and that he's partnering with others. Well, let's say he, not physically he, but he, persons within the force, because there's a crime prevention unit, and that crime prevention unit would be tasked with certain responsibilities so that they're able to partner on behalf of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They'll be able to partner with these persons so that we are able to do what? Work behind the scenes to bring offenders to justice. You know, sometimes you look at the Commissioner of Police, and over the years, I've had the opportunity to either sit with one or two police officers who would have served information, passed information, shared information with us as we collate data for transmitting to the United Nations Human Rights Commission. And there are some persons, their personality is like rough, and some again have calmer in their approach. But listen, you know the term, Mrs. Hodge, armed and dangerous, you know, or some people quiet and deadly, you know. And what I've noticed is that several persons who you see them on the street, who are part of that crime unit, are quite approachable and all of that. But heaven help us. If one of us should be on the wrong side of the law, I am sure that their personality would flip. I want again to say thank you. I want to say thank you. There is a website. It's they looked at the deaths, right? They looked at the deaths per 1,000 people and the death rate over the years. And I went all the way back from 1999 onwards. And it an increase of the death rate. And we asked the question, the crude death rate is the total number of deaths in a year relative to the average population size. In 1999, you have 7.77. In 2000, it was 7.91. And there was a just gradual increase. In 2010, 9.54. In 2016, 10.98. In 2020, 12.93. And in 2023, 11.5. You can check out that data according to macrotrends.net. Here is another interesting thing that I found about intentional homicides or intentional deaths. These are deaths that results from, intentional, unlawful killing of a person with the intent to cause death or serious injury. And so some statistics from 2000 to 2016. In 2000, we have 20. These are intentional homicides. In 2021, 12. I don't know. The reason why I'm giving the history is to show that there is a gradual increase in intentional homicides. And the question must come to our mind. That particular question must come to our mind. It says, why? What is responsible for these intentional homicides? In 2003, 18. In 2004, 29. In 2005, 26. In 2007, 40. In 2008, 16. And you come right up to 2016 with 40 deaths, 40 victims of intentional homicides. That's between 2000 and 2016. And the trend is basically the same. When we look at websites from UNODC and Eurostat, and we use certain criteria, they use certain criteria to track intentional homicides. And that is to monitor the violence levels within our nations. Now, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is known as a nation that, boy, you know, you have to be careful, you know, because every Monday morning somebody being killed. That's going to affect us as we are held out as a sovereign international state to the rest of the world. You know, it's going to affect us. Yeah, it can affect our image. Macrotrends.net as well. The murder homicide rate per 100,000 population. From 1996 or even 1997, it was 7.88, and there was a rise, gradual rise. Well, they have a few years that have like a slight decline. 2005 was 23.21, 2006 was 17.95, but 2007 it went right back up to 36.09, and then in 2016 37.75, and 2018 32.29. 2019 there was of course a decline, 18.11. 2020 31.54, and 2021 30.67. Why? What are those factors that are contributing to a general increase in homicide in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Vincentians, we are a sensible set of people. We have common sense. Most of us have a common sense approach towards how we must make life and living and livelihood. And so we have got to catch ourselves. Together we will be able to manage crime and the types of violence that we are experiencing here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's unprecedented. There must be something. So if it is not one or two, probably 5 factors that are contributing towards this increase. Is it true that some can commit murder and get away with it? You know, I'm asking the question again. Who killed my friend Shoma Adams Thomas? Who killed she? But I have some shocking information here that, look, yes, I like the research, but sometimes it takes a lot of time. But I went back because I would normally do some research on anything you could think about. And then I'll keep that information, and then when it's time, I go back and double check to see the original thing that I saw or read, if it really is still there and if there was an update and so on. Okay, so before I share that with us, let me see. Say, can St. Vincent and the Grenadines not collaborate with other states in the Caribbean and work together to help to bring crime under control? Of course we can. As I was saying, we have been doing some work. I must commend the previous administrations as well as this current administration, that we have been doing some work in terms of working together and collaborating with others within the Caribbean to help to bring crime under control. But things seem to be spiraling out of control, even if we collaborate. Because one thing I am told is this: the focus on crime management is not providing police officers with vests, you know, bulletproof vests, 16 bulletproof vests, and then some batons and shields. It has to go beyond that. It has to be more than that. You have to be able to sit down and the same and more detailed analysis than what I have done today, because this is just skimming the top of the whole thing. It's like a little tip of the iceberg. Information is within our domain. We have bright, permit me to say bright boys and girls, men and women, because my first child is 37 years. You have police officers who are younger than that, who are trained, who understand the process of, okay, let me sit down and analyze. Let's see, let's pick up trends and to focus a program, hotspots, focus a program of activities, do something, bring it to the attention of the chief of police, the commissioner of police, and say, okay, these are the issues. If the commissioner of police doesn't want to hear you, Can you don't go straight to him? There is a process whereby you sit and you analyze this information. Then you design well, I wouldn't want to say a reaction. You design a program, a programmatic approach towards this, so that we are able to get this done. Okay, thank you for reminding me that I have 5 minutes. For such a small island state, we cannot continue this way, or there will be no one left on the island. Trust me, there will be no one left if we continue like this. But here, what I want to thank one of our legal luminaries here, Mr. Jomo Thomas. He said in one of the newspapers I was checking there, I think it was St. Vincent Times, in January of this year, he says 96, I beg your pardon, 96 individuals are imprisoned for murder. Listen carefully, 96, eh? Something like a quarter of the population in prison are murderers. But when the murderers, they are imprisoned for murder. But then he was also saying, forget the manslaughter bit and forget about other violent crimes. Not that we forget, but for reasoning here. So this is a case, he says, for moral decay within a small island developing state that we once called a land so beautiful. Yeah? There must come a question as to why. The rough count over the past 12 to 13 years, 500 homicides. 500, but only 96. That's why he come up with a quarter of the population. Then only 96 people incarcerated for murder. What happened to the other 400 and something? What happened to the other 400? So what you really want to say? Our melanated boys and girls and family members and friends and neighbors over the past years have had to sit and wait and still waiting and murmuring as to what has happened to their loved ones. Well, they bury them. But then you have some men and women who are running loose. Who killed Sherma Adams Thomas? Who? Who killed the other people that were dead? Who killed them? We don't know. And that is why I have to commend the Commissioner of Police for saying he's working behind the scenes. Because some people will talk on themselves, some people will talk on the deathbed. Well, by that too late, you can incarcerate them again. Some people will talk, some people know who have done what they have done, and they are in our communities hiding out. Is it true to say that given the statistics that plenty of people who kill other people ain't get catch yet, and is still on the loose, on the run? Brothers and sisters, 96 charge and serving time from in the 1990s. 500 people are dead over the last 12 to 13 years. And brothers and sisters, we have persons within our communities who are not caught as yet. Moral decay, moral depravity. I asked this question in the last few minutes. What are we doing to assist each other in this whole process of a holistic approach towards crime management? The National Liberation Movement, a movement with a political arm to which we belong, promise you that we will collaborate with law enforcement agencies regionally and internationally. We are already in consultations with a number of law enforcement agencies, that much I could say, in order to bring a specific focus on the management of crime and violent behaviors here on the island. May God help us as we endeavor to do our best. God's blessings be upon you until next Tuesday, when we shall return with another topic of interest. Good night and all the very best.